Our meeting starts now, so kindly please take your seat. I have the honor to invite the United Nations Secretary General, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, to make an opening statement. Mr. Secretary General, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Secretary General. Your Excellency, President George Ivanov of former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia, Your Excellency, Madam Aja Dr. Isatu Nj Saidi, Vice President of the Republic of the Gambia, Your Excellency, Secretary of State Peter Mauro of Swiss Federation, Excellencies, distinguished ministers, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure and honor for me to be with you today. You are at the forefront of reducing disaster risk and building communities of resilience in every corner of the world. Thank you for coming together for this vital cause. I'm also pleased that this forum will recognize the work of some outstanding champions for disaster risk reduction, such as His Excellency Mr. Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono, President of Indonesia. I also congratulate the winners of the Sasakawa Award for their innovative and sustainable work on disaster risk reduction. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, this conference's aim is to reduce risk of disasters through technology, knowledge, and economic tools. But for many of us, this mission is also deeply personal. The United Nations is the global first responder to disaster and crisis. As Secretary General, I have seen the devastation of Cyclone Nargis in Myanmar, the destruction from the epic floods in Pakistan, the horrific impact of earthquakes in Haiti, Western China, and Chile. I have looked in the eyes of those who have lost loved ones. I have listened to those who have seen the world they know disappear in a flash. And I have struggled to answer the simple one-word question, why? Just recently I was in Chernobyl, Ukraine. The hand of man was responsible for that catastrophe 25 years ago. But the earthquake and tsunami in Japan gave us the disaster in Fukushima with all its echoes of Chernobyl and the grave warning to the future. As we have learned again and again, no country or city, rich or poor, is immune. But alongside the dangers from disaster rests the dangerous myth that acts of nature are just that, unavoidable or inevitable. But our actions, we can either compound disasters or diminish them. The difference is in preparedness. The difference is in us, in you. We are at the middle point of the Hyogo framework of action. There has been substantial progress at the global, regional, and national levels. That is one of the main messages of the 2011 Global Assessment Report on Disaster Risk Reduction, which we are launching today. It shows that as countries invest more in early warning and preparedness, mortality risk from floods and cyclones is trending down. At the same time, economic loss and damage to homes, schools, health facilities, and livelihoods are on the rise. As we begin this meeting, I would like to make 3 points to advance our work. The first, we must accelerate our efforts. The world's vulnerability to disaster risk is growing faster than our ability to increase resilience. As a result of global climate change, weather-related hazards are on the rise. Nuclear safety and the threat of multiple hazards add an even greater sense of urgency. I know that making the case for investment in risk reduction can be an uphill struggle, particularly in tough economic times. But we also know that solutions may be more a matter of spending wisely, not spending more. Building local capacities, effective early warning systems, proper land use planning, good building design, a focus on the needs of women, even small investments in building, planning, and training can yield remarkable results. Second, let us broaden the coalition for action. Disaster risk reduction is everyone's business. I'm encouraged that here at this conference, we have an unprecedented assembly of mayors and other local leaders, parliamentarians, civil society leaders, the private sector leaders, and policymakers. Let us work together to empower and create communities of resilience. Let me assure you that the United Nations is fully committed. We will continue to integrate disaster risk reduction and preparedness, as well as climate change adaptation measures into our work around the world. That leads me to my third and final point. Let us risk-proof development. I arrived this morning from Istanbul and the 4th United Nations Conference on Least Developed Countries. The economies of the LDCs and small island developing states suffer the most from disasters, much of it driven by poverty, weather and climate variability, and climate change. No development effort will be equitable or sustainable unless disaster and climate risk measures are a part of the picture. It is time to better connect risk reduction with the sustainable development, especially as we prepare for next year's Rio Plus 20 conference. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, by its very nature, the work of risk reduction may go unsung. The flood or earthquake one plans for may not happen for years, even generations. And when it does, success is measured by what does not occur. The school that did not collapse, the building that did not fall, the village that was not destroyed. But it goes far deeper. Your efforts are really about making sure that despite the fury and force of natural hazards, communities can continue to thrive, families can continue to prosper, and children can continue to dream. That is the essence of your work, and there is nothing more meaningful than that. And I thank you again for mobilizing your force for good to confront any force of nature. Let us work together with your strong leadership and commitment to make this world safer and better for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary General, for your inspiring statement. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll now listen to the video statement by His Excellency, Mr. Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono, President of Indonesia.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. His Excellency Ban Ki-moon, Secretary General of the United Nations, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for honoring me with the Global Champions for Disaster Risk Reduction Award. I accept this as recognition of the determination and hard work of all Indonesians in responding to the challenges of natural disasters. Indonesia is the most vulnerable country to natural disasters, and as a consequence, coping with disasters has become deeply implanted in our national mindset. If there is anything new in our short, medium, and long-term development strategy, it is disaster risk reduction. We have established a law in 2007 that made disaster risk reductions a compulsory factor in all development efforts, in building factories, infrastructures, offices, schools, homes, and others. Disaster management is among the top priorities of my government, and since 2008, the allocated budget increased by some 1,000%. In recent years, we have learned many lessons. Let me share with you a few. First, we need to change our paradigm from reactive to proactive, from emergency response to risk reduction, and from government to civil society. Second, we need to make it comprehensive and covering all aspects of our national development. We are finalizing a disaster risk map this year to help with planning and awareness at the provincial level. Third, we need to instill a culture of safety nationwide. Prevention and preparedness are far better than reacting and mourning. Fourth, government cannot do this alone. The community must be engaged. We have established local disaster management teams ready to act in emergency. Fifth, the importance of local leadership. During disasters, there would be communication and logistical problems, and the role of local actors are much needed. And finally, try to make use of local wisdom. This is what the people in the island of Simelu did to avoid tsunami destruction in 2004. They fled to the hills when they saw sign of a tsunami, a local knowledge imparted by their ancestors. Regionally, Indonesia has spearheaded various initiatives for disaster preparedness, such as joint regional exercises and adopting early warning system. In Southeast Asia, ASEAN strives to attain common visions of disaster resilient nations by 2015. At the global level, through the United Nations, Indonesia has fostered greater coordination and cooperation in disaster management. Next June, I will also announce the launching of the World Economic Forum's third country network of the disaster resource partnerships. The national programs, regional and global initiatives aim at not only preparedness, but also build solidarity across nations. After all, disaster affecting one country ultimately affect all of humanity. I thank you.
We thank His Excellency Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono, President of Indonesia, for his video message. I will now invite Ms. Wallström, Special Representative of the Secretary General on Disaster Risk Reduction, to hand a letter of commendation to the representative of the President of Indonesia, Dr. Syamsul Marif, Head of the National Disaster Management. Ms. Wallström and Dr. Marif, please. Thank you. I now have the pleasure to give the floor to Ms. Sri Mulyani Indrawati, Managing Director of the World Bank, to make her remarks. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you, Deputy Secretary, Secretary General, distinguished panelists and delegates. It is really great pleasure that I join you for the opening of the third session of the Global Platform for Disaster Reduction and the World Reconstruction Conference. Never has such an event been more timely. The image of lives and community destroyed in recent catastrophes have touched us all. In Pakistan, Haiti, Japan, we have seen the many phases of disaster, the human tragedy of lost family, friends, and job, and physical devastations of home, school, and hospital, and also financial and economic burden of recovery and reconstruction. The frequency of disaster is increasing, and their economic costs rising. Rapid urbanization and the risks associated with changing climate can further accelerate this trend. According to recent study, the number of people living with the threat of earthquakes and cyclones in city could triple by 2050. And we know that the poorest are always hit first and hardest. The 21st century will increasingly be defined by how we address these global challenges. President Yudhoyono has shared the experience of Indonesia, how to cope and to mitigate with disaster management. As development planning as well as finance minister for Indonesia during the devastating tsunami in Aceh in 2004, I experienced firsthand the social and economic burden of disaster. Now, at the World Bank, I see the global effort underway to support countries as they prepare for and reduce the risk of natural hazard, and its global effort to share good practices and lessons learned. One of our key priorities is to integrate modern disaster risk management practices into development strategy and investment policy of the country we work with. I am pleased to report that in the last 3 years, 60 country assistance strategy and 39 poverty reduction strategy papers have addressed disaster and climate change adaptation issue. That is a good start, and we will build on it. Today, we are here to open the first World Reconstruction Conference. It builds on our commitment and provides space, not only to share our experience and learn from each other, but also to agree on how we should work more effectively together to meet growing needs in both reducing risk and recovering from disaster. In this context, I would like to highlight 3 key areas that are important for us to work in order to achieve progress. First, effective framework. Second, reliable reconstruction and recovery finance. And third, integrating risk mitigation and climate adaptation in all reconstruction and development activity. Let me briefly explain each. First, on developing an effective framework for post-disaster recovery and reconstruction. When a crisis hits, affected countries often experience a wave of international goodwill, which require coordinating a large number of actors. Government in advanced economy generally have the capacity to lead and coordinate and planning the whole recovery process. But many developing countries can be overwhelmed. That was my experience when I was in the Ministry of Development Planning in Indonesia facing with the tsunami in 2004. Despite repeated large-scale assistance operations around the world, not much common understanding has evolved across development partner and national government over the policy, strategy, financing, institutional, implementation, and measurement aspect of recovery and reconstruction program. The role and responsibility of various partners remain unclear. Duplication and lack of good planning can jeopardize the speed and quality of reconstruction. Therefore, I believe an effective reconstruction and recovery framework should be developed that can better define roles and responsibility within clear institutional arrangement, capitalize effectively on the strengths of various stakeholders, and clearly place country in the driver's seat of decision-making and resource allocation, and then provide in time relevant knowledge and lesson learned, and assist in establishing robust and transparent quality and result monitoring system. Second, improving access to reliable reconstruction and recovery finance. Financing recovery is very costly and can divert resources intended for much needed investment for development. International financial support is critical, but often uneven and dependent on when and where disaster strike. The OECD Development Aid Committee report that outside financing and donation usually offset less than 10% of country disaster losses. As a result, developing countries often don't have enough resources for what needed. And with whatever is available, there is no guarantee it gets to those people who need it, and in a timely manner. Countries that depend on external aid operate and plan without exactly knowing what financial resources will be available to them. Having said that, let me also raise another concern. When funds do arrive, a lack of capacity to manage those funds and a pressure to implement quickly can result in a misuse of funds. We need to find better way to provide access to reliable reconstruction finance, build capacity to manage the surge of resource, and better integrate the resources of private foundation and NGO effectively, and then develop instruments to tap the financial capacity of global capital market. The World Bank recently announced a crisis response window within the International Development Association. Contingency funding is set aside for low-income countries facing economic crisis, food crisis, or natural disaster event. In addition, countries such as Costa Rica, Guatemala, El Salvador, Colombia, and Peru are using new risk financing instrument. We call it Catastrophic Risk Deferred Drawdown Option, or CAT-DDO, to have access to immediate liquidity following natural disaster. These are steps in the right direction, but more need to be done. Finally, let me say a few words about integrating risk mitigation and climate adaptation in all reconstruction and development activity. Disaster prevention pays both in terms of life saved and budget protected. Better still, it often does not cost more. In addition, low-cost mitigation measures can be very effective. In 1991, for example, 138,000 people lost their life when Bangladesh cyclone hit. Since then, Bangladesh has invested in early warning system and cyclone shelter. The country has built a volunteer system for rapid evacuation. Thanks to this effort, the number of deaths has been drastically reduced. During Cyclone Sidr in 2007, only 3,400 people died. Bangladesh continued to improve its system. We need to assist country in guiding the incentive, structure, and policy environment toward risk mitigation and climate adaptation. At the same time, I would like to urge international organizations, donors, NGO, and the private sector to intensify their effort to integrate risk mitigation and climate adaptation in their regular development and investment portfolio. To achieve progress in this area, I have highlighted action is needed on many fronts, and in particular in the management of knowledge, development of partnership, and cultivation of innovation. I am encouraged by the testimony of partnership, cooperation, knowledge sharing, and innovation, which is the solid basis of the global platform and World Reconstruction Conference. This forum offered an unparalleled opportunity to explore the ideas and advance the discussion in this critical area. I am personally excited to contribute to this effect, and I look forward to challenging debate and ideas for moving ahead with partnership. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm now pleased to give the floor to the host country. His Excellency, Mr. Peter Maurer, Secretary of State for Foreign Affairs, Swiss Confederation, will give remarks on behalf of the President of the Swiss Confederation.
Monsieur le secrétaire général, messieurs les chefs d'État, madame la sous-secrétaire générale, mesdames et messieurs les ministres, excellences, chers collègues, c'est au nom de la présidente de la Confédération suisse, madame Micheline Calmiret, que je m'exprime aujourd'hui, n'ayant malheureusement pas été en mesure d'être présente. Elle m'a prié de la remplacer. C'est un honneur de vous accueillir ici à Genève. C'est également une grande responsabilité, car ce qui nous rassemble ici est une tâche complexe et qui nécessite une attention soutenue dans la durée et sur le contenu. La réduction et la prévention des risques de catastrophes. C'est une activité qui a créé en grande partie les bases de la sécurité et de la prospérité en Suisse, au vu des catastrophes naturelles qui sont survenues pendant les siècles. C'est aussi une thématique pour laquelle la Suisse s'engage depuis de nombreuses années. Permettez-moi tout d'abord, au nom du peuple et des autorités suisses, de rendre hommage à toutes les victimes des récentes catastrophes naturelles. Aussi, nous adressons des remerciements chaleureux à tous les sauveteurs de tous lieux et de toute nationalité qui ont pris les risques, souvent considérables, pour apporter assistance et protection aux victimes. Les événements au Japon viennent de nous le rappeler brusquement et brutalement. La nature nous dépasse toutes et tous et nous devons en prendre soin de la respecter. Et si le Japon nous l'a rappelé plus fortement d'ailleurs, c'est parce que nous pensions, à tort, que les pays industrialisés en pointe technologiquement avaient conquis la maîtrise des phénomènes naturels. Depuis la conférence de Yokohama en 1994 et la conférence mondiale sur la prévention des catastrophes à Kobe en 2005, des connaissances ont été accumulées et partagées. Des mesures concrètes ont été adoptées, des lacunes à combler ont été identifiées et les défis encore à relever ont été cernés. Ceci a été accompli grâce à l'engagement de toute la communauté réunie dans la stratégie internationale de la prévention des catastrophes. Mesdames et messieurs, dans l'optique des débats qui nous attendent cette semaine, je voudrais attirer l'attention sur les 5 points suivants dont l'importance nous semble centrale. Premièrement, il en est de la responsabilité de tous les pays, les plus industrialisés aux moins avancés, de mettre en œuvre la déclaration de Hyogo. Il nous revient de protéger nos populations et nos biens sur nos territoires en prenant toutes les mesures à cet effet. Ensuite et deuxièmement, il est nécessaire que les stratégies de réduction des risques de catastrophes soient intégrées systématiquement dans les planifications globales des autorités, à tous les niveaux, en incluant en particulier les préoccupations et les attentes des populations qui sont directement concernées. Troisièmement, la réduction et la prévention des risques ne relèvent pas seulement de l'aide humanitaire. Des activités dans le domaine du développement, de l'environnement, du changement climatique, de l'eau, de l'agriculture et de l'exploitation des ressources terrestres sont également nécessaires. Les services de la Banque mondiale, du Programme des Nations unies pour le développement et de la Fédération internationale des sociétés de la Croix-Rouge et du Croissant-Rouge et d'autres partenaires encore doivent également en faire partie. La collaboration exemplaire qui a régné entre tous ces acteurs doit être soulignée et encouragée. De même, la phase dite de réhabilitation après un désastre majeur constitue souvent une opportunité afin d'éviter les erreurs du passé et de ne pas créer de nouveaux risques. Reconstruire mieux exige donc des conditions particulières. Cela prend du temps et des ressources. Quatrièmement, il nous paraît essentiel d'être conséquents avec nous-mêmes. L'Assemblée générale des Nations unies a donné mandat à la stratégie internationale de mettre en œuvre des stratégies de réduction des risques de catastrophes, comme envisagé dans la déclaration de Hyogo. Cependant, comme l'évaluation à mi-terme l'a montré, l'ancrage institutionnel et le financement du secrétariat dans le système onusien ne sont pas satisfaisants et ne donnent pas le résultat que l'on attend. Il y a encore un besoin à la fois de standards de qualité et de redavabilité. Le segment humanitaire de l'ECOSOC devrait servir de plateforme de décision sur ce thème. Enfin, la mise en œuvre des stratégies de réduction des risques de catastrophe est une responsabilité globale qui relève de tous les acteurs utilisant les voies de la coopération sud-sud, est-sud, nord-sud et des partenariats publics-privés. Mesdames et messieurs, je souhaite que nos réflexions et nos échanges tout au long de la semaine débouchent collectivement sur des résultats concrets, l'établissement des priorités et les mesures y afférentes à tous les niveaux et pour tous les acteurs concernés. Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, votre présence à tous ici aujourd'hui atteste de l'importance que vous accordez à la problématique qui nous réunit. Je vous remercie pour votre engagement et souhaite plein succès à cette 3e édition de la plateforme globale pour la réduction des risques de catastrophe. Mesdames et Messieurs, je vous remercie.
Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Ministre. I now have the honor to give the floor to His Excellency, Mr. Georg Ivanov, President of the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia, to make his remarks. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Господин генерален секретар на Обединените нации, господја заменик генерален секретар, екселенции, почитувани делегати, дами и господа. Ја користам ова можност да го споделам со сите претходни говорници моето сочувство со народот и владата на Јапонија и со сите народи кои беа жртви на природни и од човекот предизвикани катастрофи во оваа смртоносна деценија. Суочени сме со клучен момент во историјата. Момент кога меѓузависните глобални ризици, од климатски промени до ризици од катастрофи, од неурамнотежен економски и урбан развој до деградација на екосистемот, бараат соодветен заеднички глобален одговор. Свесни сме дека не постои одржлив развој без отпорност кон катастрофите. Овде сме за да ја признаеме директната поврзаност меѓу несоовесното однесување на човекот и реалноста на климатските промени и природните катастрофи. Од тие причини цврсто верувам дека координираниот пристап за намалување на ризиците од катастрофи, за адаптација кон климатските промени и за одржлив развој преку интегрирани политики и усогласени практични чекори е најважниот влог за побезбедна иднина. Подржувајќи го разводот втемелен на морално расудување, знаење, отпорност, превенција и адаптација, заеднички ја градиме иднината на која нема да и биде потребен кораб за да ги преброди деновите на потопот. Сепак и наптаму ни е потребен план. Впрочем, и не врнеше кога Ное го изгради својот кораб. Со планирање, а при тоа поддржани од креативното водство на меѓународната стратегија на Обединетите нации за намалување на катастрофи, иднината ја носиме во сегашноста, за да можеме сега да направиме нешто во иднина. Македонија, инспирирана од општата идеја која произлегува од рамката за акција од Хјого, се залага и активно работи на градење на капацитетите за отпорност и ја промовира агендата за намалување на ризици од катастрофи на локално, национално, регионално, а денес и на глобално ниво.
Mr. Secretary General of the United Nations, Madam Deputy Secretary General, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, availing myself of this opportunity, I would like to share with all previous speakers my condolences to the people and government of Japan and all nations that have suffered from natural and man-made disasters in this deadly decade. We are facing a defining moment in history, moment when the independent global risks from climate change to disaster risk, from unbalanced economic and urban development to ecosystem degradation, require adequate and joint global response. We recognize that development without resilience to disasters is not sustainable. We are also here to recognize the direct linkage between the human misconduct and the reality of climate change and natural disasters. For these reasons, I strongly believe that a coordinated approach to disaster risk reduction, to climate change adaptation, and to sustainable development through integrated policies and harmonized practical steps is the most important investment for a safer tomorrow. By supporting development based on moral judgment, knowledge, resilience, prevention, and adaptation, we are jointly building a future that will not need an ark to endure the days of the flood. Still, we need to plan ahead. After all, it was not raining when Noah built his ark. By planning, supported by the creative guidance of UN ISDR, we are bringing the future into the present so that we now can do something about it. Macedonia, inspired by the general idea of the Hyogo Framework for Action, is committed and active in building resilience and promoting the DRR agenda on the local, national, regional, and today on the global level. Distinguished delegates, understanding that disasters result from the impact of natural hazards on vulnerable individuals and communities, the Republic of Macedonia developed its national multi-sector platform for disaster risk reduction. The Macedonian model, based on a holistic approach, is leading to effective and efficient risk reduction by integrating available and relevant capacities and resources on all administrative levels, allowing us to integrate DRR into our national strategies, policies, plans, and legislation. It is a joint effort that brings together all segments of Macedonian society, public and private, academic and business, religious and secular sectors. Through the local and regional councils for DRR, Macedonia encourages the involvement of local authorities in DRR efforts, thus increasing public and private investments in local action. I find it to be true that resilience evokes responsibility, where individual and institutional commitment, along with inspection and insurance, go hand in hand. Cultivating a culture of shared responsibility is a key precondition for disaster risk reduction. For exactly this reason, by joining the Southeast European Catastrophe Risk Insurance Facility, the Republic of Macedonia is embracing this important dimension of private-public partnership and also encouraging other nations to follow the suit.
Екселенции, на регионално европско ниво Република Македонија ги прифати со голем ентузијазам и посветеност обврските кои произлегуваат од председавањето со Европскиот форум за намалување на ризиците од катастрофи за 2011 година. Поддржани од UNICDR во Европа и EUROR договорот за големи опасности, форумот е силно посветен на стимулирање и овозможување на размена и споделување на искуства и добри практики меѓу европските земји. Воедно, председавајќи со работната група за адаптација кон климатските промени во рамките на Европскиот форум, заедно со водечките европски земји на тоа поле, како што е Франција, Германија и Норвешка, особено сме посветени на поврзување на напорите за намалување на ризиците и адаптации. Ниту една земја не може да го постигне ова самостојно. Во текот на македонското председателство, со процесот на соработка во Југоисточна Европа, во периодот од 2012-2013 година, иницирав организирање на самит за земјите од Југоисточна Европа, кој би се фокусирал на зајакнување на регионалната соработка во овој контекст. Очекувам дека ова средба ќе подигне регионалната свест и одговорност за проблемите и предизвиците кои не познаваат граници, а чии последици повеќе или помалку се наша заедничка грижа. Очекувам дека ова ќе даде конечни резултати во посакуваната насока. Се надевам дека Обединетите нации преку генералниот секретар и соодветните тела ќе учествуваат на самитот и ќе дадат свој придонес во овој заеднички потват. Дами и господа, ризикот од катастрофи е реалност на денешницата, но и реална закана за иднината. Закана која може да се отстрани само со исполнување на обврските и бројните заложби кон кои се обврзаа нашите влади во изминатите децении. Најважна обврска на ова генерација на идните поколенија да им остави помалку ралнив свет, исто како што тоа Ное го направи за човештвото на врвот на библискиот Арарат. Имајќи ја на ум ова мисла, дозволете ми да ве подсетам на Ајнштајновата мудрост. Не можеме да ги решиме проблемите ако го користиме истиот начин на размислување кој го користевме кога ги создававме. Ова генерација треба да усвои еден поинаков начин на размислување, за да можеме да им оставиме побезбедносен свет на нашите деца. Ви благодарам.
I thank His Excellency Mr. Georg Ivanov, President of the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia. I now have the honor to give the floor to Her Excellency Ms. Aja Dr. Issa Tunji Saidi, Vice President of the Gambia, to make her remarks. Madam Vice President, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, Deputy Secretary General, Madam Asha Rose Migiro, the Under-Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs and Emergency Relief Coordinator. I want to recognize, of course, the President of the former Macedonia Republic, as well as our host, the representative of the Swiss government, the Under-Secretary General, that is the Assistant Secretary General, of course, and Special Representative for Disaster Risk Reduction as well, and all members of the UN family here present, and all delegations. All other protocols duly observed. Good afternoon. Madam Chairperson, first of all, please allow me to convey special greetings from my President, His Excellency, Sheikh Professor Alhaji Dr. Yahya AJJ Jammeh, to this special session, that is the Global Platform for Disaster Risk Reduction, a third in a row, of course. I also wish to express my heartfelt thanks and appreciation to the Swiss Confederation and the people of Switzerland for the hospitality that they always do give us on such occasions. And this time accorded to me as well and my delegation since our arrival in this beautiful city of Geneva. And to the UN Secretary General and our indefatigable, I will always say, Secretary General, of course, his able team, for the support and exemplary leadership that they have been giving over the years with regards to disaster reduction and climate change adaptation measures in our various countries. Madam Chairperson, the theme for this year's platform is very apt. It's relevant and timely because it says, invest today for a safer tomorrow. I think all of us want that. Increase investment in local action, going back to basics, start with the grassroots. That's more sustainable. That's what we are told here, and that is, indeed, that's what should be. Of course, in the sense that it is communities, we should all agree, as previous speakers have said, that are often more vulnerable, because disasters are localized, we always say, and we agree, to the impact of natural and human-induced disasters. Therefore, investing in building the capacities and resilience, in particular, of local communities through decentralization activities, of course, will enhance the ownership, for sure, and sustainability of disaster risk reduction interventions in our various respective countries and communities. We've just had our champion tell us that. The Secretary General reiterated the point, as well as previous speakers. This is ample empirical evidence, of course. We do have that evidence to indicate that the least developed countries in particular, and small island states, are the most vulnerable to the impacts of climate change and human-induced disasters and hazards. This applies to Africa for sure, in particular, which is the only continent, as far as I know, where the regional share of reported cases of disaster in the world total has increased over the past decade. What does that tell us? It tells us unpreparedness most of the time. It tells us our vulnerability as a continent. It tells us we need capacity building and institutional strengthening in the area of disaster management. And the opportunity is available now. In addition to large, discrete, and high-impact disasters, which are publicized, of course, as headline news globally, it is equally important not to lose sight of recurrent, unpublicized, localized hazards, which we do experience in Africa, which affect poor developing countries like ours and people that are least able to cope regularly, and in some cases, do occur annually for sure. We either have consistent floods or droughts or other forms of disasters. If we are to seriously fight poverty, therefore, and enhance sustainable development in the process, then of course it would be absolutely imperative to address the concerns of the poor and the least developed countries at the lower end of the global spectrum, and community of nations and societies that are most vulnerable and the least able, of course, to cope with the impacts of disasters. And therefore, as I said earlier, again, I want to reiterate the need for local action and local implementation of activities and programs in disaster risk reduction. It is also important to note at this juncture that currently climate change is a key trigger, for sure, for the occurrence of disasters involving droughts, floods, and other hydrometeorological phenomena, and thus the need at all levels, of course, to integrate disaster risk reduction with climate change adaptation for development programming. I think we've passed the stage where we only think that disaster is humanitarian. It goes beyond humanitarian assistance. It's embedded in development. That's what our champion has just told us here on the video, and that is what has been reiterated by our development partners. I think we should really have preventive measures in place rather than have curative measures, because they're very expensive. In the Gambia, we have elaborated a 4-year disaster risk reduction and climate change adaptation program with support from, of course, the UN ISDR, and we keenly look forward, therefore, for funding to implement this very innovative program. As I do so, I also want to salute, of course, our representative from the World Bank here present, the director. We salute the World Bank Global Facility for Disaster Reduction, the European Union, UN agencies, the Red Cross, and other relevant partners for supporting programs in disaster risk reduction in our various countries, including the Gambia, in coordination with the UN ISDR. Therefore, Madam Chairperson, the government of the Gambia fully recognizes the fact that disaster risk management is a development imperative, like I said earlier on, and a priority, as it supports the achievement of development objectives, such as our PRSP goals, and of course, the achievement of the MDGs, for sure. It is therefore against this backdrop that an institutional framework for disaster risk reduction was developed, and a disaster management governing council was also put in place, established at the highest political level, with its decentralized structures as well, down to the community level, as well as regular funding from government, because it's important for government to start the process, and only for development partners to complement our efforts. Madam Chairperson, the 2010 floods tested the resilience and the capacity of the Gambia and its people to overcome disasters. We were not the only one. In the ECOWAS sub-region, many others faced the same. The response speaks to the fact that the first responders were persons from the immediate community and vicinity, hence the reason for strengthening disaster committees at the community level, that is, at the level of the people themselves. In addition, the government of the Gambia is also currently engaged in relocating residents from critical disaster zones. There is something we call hotspots, disaster hotspots. It's better to relocate people on time before a major disaster occurs and human life and collateral damage happens. These critical disaster zones, we do relocate people to safer grounds, and has also identified in the Gambia at least 14 hotspots throughout the country with support from the National Disaster Management Agency in order to undertake disaster risk reduction interventions in these areas to mitigate, of course, the impact of future floods in the country. I'm happy to report that implementation of these important disaster risk reduction measures has commenced throughout the country. In fact, we've given out contracts to address about 9 areas of hotspots, as it were, of disaster risk reduction. In conclusion, I would like to make the clarion call to all partners to redouble our efforts, of course, collectively, to realize the strategies, goals of the Hyogo framework for action. As we have, as I'm talking to you now, only 3 years and 8 months to achieve the targets of the Hyogo framework, which has the same time frame, I'm sure all of us know, as our MDGs, 2015. We have a lot of work, therefore, ahead of us, and time surely is not on our side. But I'm sure, with renewed vigor, the political commitment and will, enthusiasm, as well as substantial resources, of course, that are needed, and foresight, we will certainly achieve these targets that we have set for ourselves. Can we all rise up to this challenge? I always say, indeed, yes, we can, and God willing, we will, only if we are committed. I thank you all for your kind attention. Thank you.
I thank Her Excellency, Ms. Aja Dr. Issa Tunji Saidi, Vice President of the Gambia. I now give the floor to His Excellency, Mr. Shozo Azuma, Senior Vice Minister, Cabinet Office, Japan, to make his remarks. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
His Excellency Mr. Ban Ki-moon, the Secretary General of the United Nations, honored international delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Let me start by congratulating the group on the opening of the 3rd session of the Global Platform for Disaster Risk Reduction. I also want to express my gratitude to the Secretariat that put so much effort in organizing this session. On 11th March, nearly 2 months ago, an earthquake of the strongest ever magnitude of 9.0 occurred in Japan. This brought on the disaster we are now calling the Great East Japan Earthquake, a complex disaster of an earthquake, a tsunami, and a nuclear power plant accident. More than 25,000 people are dead or missing. The Japanese government promptly responded to this mega disaster. I myself was dispatched to the affected area on the very day. Since then, I have been responsible for the investigation of damages and the coordination with the local governments. The devastation in the affected area was beyond words. The inundation spreads more than 561 square kilometers, an area as large as Lake Geneva. Houses and industrial bases were literally washed away in the coastal towns. 130,000 people still remain at the evacuation shelters. The government is taking every possible measures for the recovery of the lives and livelihoods of these people. Aid was provided from the people around the world, including more than 20,000 personnel deployed by the United States forces in Japan and 24 search and rescue teams dispatched by countries from Asia to Africa. This outpouring of support and solidarity encouraged the people of Japan. In this occasion, I sincerely express my gratitude to the kind support from the international community on behalf of the government of Japan. Regarding the accident at the Fukushima Daiichi Power Station, we have mobilized all available resources for bringing the situation under control at the earliest possible date. Specifically, in response to the government instructions, the operator, Tokyo Electric Power Company, released a roadmap towards restoration from the accident at the Fukushima Daiichi Nuclear Power Station. The government still conducts regular follow-up to ensure safe and appropriate implementation of the steps indicated in the roadmap and to achieve required safety. Moreover, the government has taken every possible measure to ensure the safety of all food and other products based on strict scientific criteria. We will continue our efforts to maintain transparency and provide accurate information in a prompt manner. Let me clarify that except for the areas adjacent to the power plant, there is no influence of radiation and people live their lives as usual. 16 years ago, Japan was severely hit by the Great Hanshin-Awaji earthquake. 10 years later, we hosted the World Conference on Disaster Reduction in Hyogo Prefecture, which has brilliantly recovered from the disaster. The then adopted Hyogo Framework for Action has been the global milestone for disaster risk reduction. The scale of the current disaster far exceeds that of the Great Hanshin-Awaji earthquake, and the reconstruction process may take a longer time. We believe, however, that it is our obligation to share with the international community the lessons learned through this painful experience and through our efforts to rebuild a resilient society so that we can repay the kindness offered to us from all over the world. For this reason, Japan will reinforce its support to UNISDR and to Asian countries through the Asian Disaster Reduction Center and other institutes, and promote the implementation of the Hyogo Framework during the latter half of the term until 2015. Moreover, we strive to contribute to the formation of a new policy framework, which should consider such emerging issues as climate change adaptation and the lessons learned from the Great East Japan earthquake. Also, Japan must carefully monitor the progress of this complex disaster and other issues. It is ready to host the Third World Conference on Disaster Reduction to further promote international cooperation in disaster risk reduction. For the preparation, Japan is planning to organize a high-level international conference in Japan next year in order to share the experiences and lessons from the large-scale disasters that arose frequently in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, I can promise you that Japan will fully recover from the disaster. I express my gratitude again to all the representatives from the member states, regions, and international organizations, and know that this meeting will be an important step towards a safer world against all natural hazards. Thank you very much.
I thank His Excellency Senior Vice Minister Shozo Azuma. Ladies and gentlemen, we have now come to the end of the opening ceremony. I would like to take this moment to thank especially His Excellency Ban Ki-moon, Secretary General of the United Nations, Ms. Indra Vati, His Excellency Mr. Georg Ivanov, President of the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia, Her Excellency Dr. Njis Saidi, Vice President of the Gambia, His Excellency Mr. Shozo Azuma, Senior Vice Minister, Japan, His Excellency Mr. Peter Mora, Secretary of State for Foreign Affairs, Swiss Confederation. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you. I call on the distinguished panelists of the next session to join us at the podium as we are beginning immediately. Please, feel free to take your seats. Thank you very much.